With me right now is Congressman Issa. Congressman, did you go to the speech yesterday?
I did. I was in attendance. This was my sixth inaugural, my fifth president, and I listened to every word in hopes that I would hear some more unity and a little less of what we heard, which was code for we'll represent everyone as long as you don't mind us just doing what the left wants us to do.
It's just a perfect opportunity to say, hey, what happened January 6th is terrible. This got to stop if you want to go and say what he said. But why not just bring up and what's happened over the summer and what happened in the spring in cities that still have not recovered, from Minneapolis to Kenosha to San Diego, to Portland and Seattle. This is the part I had a problem with, a couple of parts, but this one in particular, cut 4.
I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. I know the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. But I also know they are not new. Our history has been a constant struggle between the American ideal that we're all are created equal and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, demonization have long torn us apart.
Is that necessary? I guess so, right?
Well, it was appropriate for his base, for the left. You started saying San Diego, but in La Mesa, where we had 2 of our banks burned and a riot that was out of control, it's all too personal to my voters who saw a lack of law enforcement and inability to do it, a governor who wouldn't rally National Guard until it was too late. So, yes, he's calling for unity, but he's only picking one side to vilify, and that's a problem. I think Republicans have been consistent. We vilify and we appropriately denounce Antifa, but we also vilify and denounce, the right when you see extremists like we on January 6th, some of whom were very clearly far-right groups that we were warned about but did not take action on until it was too late.
So Antifa wrecked 2 cities last night. Have you talked to any Democratic colleagues about using that as an opportunity to be against burning our flag and destroying property?
I talked only to Scott Peters, one of my seatmates from San Diego, briefly, and I've talked to Juan Vargas about this. And, candidly, they find themselves in a very difficult situation. They'll tell you they're sympathetic, but they also say, well, we have to be careful. And that we have to be careful is code for we can't speak about the peaceful protests that stopped being peaceful, that destroyed so much of the city.
Nancy Pelosi just spoke. She was asked about impeachment, which everybody, I think, in a clear mind realizes be ridiculous and divisive and do more to anger the 74 million that voted Donald Trump than they could possibly imagine. But listen to what she just said. I'll listen with you for the first time.
2 things. If you can put any finer point on the timing for the articles of impeachment. No? Okay.
And it'll be soon, as I said, you'll be the first to know.
Thank you.
Laughs about impeachment. So what do you think is going to happen? What's the latest that you've heard?
I believe the Senate is going to do the right thing and recognize that you can't remove from office somebody who's already left office, that it's time to move on. I'm sure there'll be a motion for just that, rather than putting our country through a trial, one that clearly no jury would convict the president of inciting a riot, especially when you look at people who came to that rally with the activities and the weapons and the planning. There's no question at all that it wasn't the president's speech that caused the criminal activity. And lastly, and Brian, this is the one that is so important, even if the Senate was going to try the president, they would first have to make sure they had the evidence. And we are so far from having all the evidence on these rioters, on these criminals, that doing it in the next week or 2 would be impossible. So I think the Senate is going to do the right thing and recognize that there's a good reason we don't have a tradition of impeaching people who have already left office.
Yeah, I would think so. Looking at Clinton, let's say this Jeffrey Epstein thing pans out with Clinton. Let's make sure we impeach him again because we don't like what he did. It's terrible. It's a terrible process to go through, and it's all vindictiveness. Although I didn't love the president, the choice of doing the president having the speech that day, the place he had it, and say march over to the Capitol. Why even do it? I agree that it was a bridge too far, but there's not a person in the White House that I know that thought they were going to breach the building. And any Trump supporter that attacks a cop does not listen to what Donald Trump stands for, and they attacked a lot of cops. So, Congressman, bring me to California. I was in Florida over the weekend. I could not believe the difference in which they're handling this virus. Per 100,000, their numbers are less than California and New York. What is going on in California?
Well, everything that could go wrong is going wrong in California, and Gavin Newsom is the reason. And I'll just use two states. You mentioned Florida with Ron DeSantis. Aggressive Republican. He's kept his state substantially open. He has a higher percentage of the vaccine that he's gotten into the arms of his citizens. And his results as far as the actual death rate and infection rate is comparable to California, but with liberty and the economy open. Then you switch to West Virginia, where we have a Democratic governor that has put.
He actually switched to Republican. Jim Justice switched to Republican.
I'm sorry, I apologize. You did see a switch. But the fact is that the planning that went on in the year leading up to it causes them to have about 3 times as many shots in the arm in West Virginia as they do in California. Why? Well, because when they were given requirement and money to plan, they planned and they executed. And that is exactly what we need to do in California, but we're not doing. But, you know, we've got a governor that tells us to wear masks, and then he doesn't wear a mask while he's sitting at a $40,000 dinner with the healthcare workers, and they're all around a table. The hypocrisy in California is virtually unlimited, and everyone knows it.
So where are you in the recall? I know you did this before and you were disappointed with the performance of Governor Schwarzenegger. He took on too many Democratic policies. But as you know, governing in California, how do you get anything passed when everybody else around you is a Democrat? Not to make excuses. You know the play-by-play of what it takes with that state. I lived there for 4 years. But your take on the chance of a recall.
Well, first of all, I'm very proud of Arnold Schwarzenegger's first term. I think in the first term, he was a pretty classic Republican in the Pete Wilson sort of image of get as much as you can get done, knowing that the fact is the Democrats control the legislature. Second term, not so much. We now have the same opportunity. Yes, our state is controlled by Democrat supermajorities in the Assembly and the Senate, but those people are in the same position the rest of California is in. They need leadership. They need leadership in the right direction. So will we elect another Democrat to replace Gavin Newsom? That's possible. It was possible when Arnold got elected. Will we recall Gavin? At this point, I think it's a sure thing that we're going to get the 1.5 million signatures. That's just a matter of getting it near a pen because the Californians in all parties are signing it. And then the question is, when you're asked just 2 questions, do you want him to go, yes or no? The answer is going to be yes. The next question is going to be who replaces him. That's currently unknown, but we have no shortage of good candidates, including 2 good Republicans, one who, John Cox, who's already run, and my own Mayor Kevin Faulconer, who is extremely popular and would carry a huge part of the crossover vote.
Interesting. I want you to hear what Governor Cuomo said. Mr. Lockdown, Lockout, shut up and sit down or I'll fine you. Listen to what he said a couple of days ago.
We simply cannot stay closed until the vaccine hits critical mass. The cost is too high. We must reopen the economy, but we must do it smartly and safely.
I fell down. That's exactly what Trump's been saying, and he's been condemning people for. Do you expect Governor Newsom to do and say those things now that there's a Democratic president?
Absolutely. I expect him to begin in the process of doing a lot of things that he should have done. And one of the things that he clearly should have done is he should have gotten the vaccine into people's arms. We're doing abysmally in California. And so I do expect to have some of these changes, but a lot of it's too little too late. You know, one fact that I just want your listeners to hear is that the bold new agenda of President Biden is 1 million shots a day, 1 million shots a day, and 100 million in 100 days. You know, in 36 days, President Trump put 38 million shots out in the hands of the states. So the only reason that's bold is because it happens to equal exactly what President Trump has been doing, or slightly less. And that's where we are right now, is that the bold agenda is to roughly equal what was already going on under President Trump.
Yeah, we know. Talk it down, and then you come in and you save the day. Basic politics. And I know it's going to be a matter of moments before we hear him criticizing his predecessor like President Obama did for at least 6 of his 8 years. Nonstop blaming Bush. It'll be nonstop blaming Trump. Or we're not going to see him at all. The story's out now that they're going to insulate him pretty well, just like he was insulated during his entire campaign. Congressman Darrell Issa, thanks so much. You're within a hair of getting back to majority. Finish the job.
Will do. Thank you, Brian.
All right. Back in a moment with your calls, 1-866-408-7669. Then we go inside the hospitality business with the best in the business, John Taffer.
Newsmakers and newsbreakers. Hear it first, only on the Brian Kilmeade Show.
Hey, don't rush off at 3. It's the Sean Hannity Show, weekdays at 3 on WCHV.
Getting hearing aids is a hassle. Where to go? Who to trust? All the back and forth to the doctor's office to